What's up guys, it's James Allen, the Out-of-State Investor, and in today's video, we're gonna talk about the 9 worst money mistakes to avoid in your 20s. Now let's face it, we all make dumb mistakes in our 20s. I know I sure did. I'm now 31 years old, so I've been through my 20s. I made my mistakes in my early 20s, and then I started making smarter choices in my mid to late 20s, and now I've set myself up for massive long-term wealth. So in this video, I'm not only gonna talk about the mistakes you should be avoiding, but also thinking proactively what you can do to build massive wealth for yourself. Now, before I get started and before I break all this down, go ahead and smash that like button. And if this is your first time visiting the channel, I buy rental properties and flip houses outside of my state, and I teach you guys how you can do the same and how you can build massive wealth in addition to upping your own personal finance game. So if any of that sounds interesting, definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell, and with that said, let's get started. All right, the first money mistake to avoid in your 20s is living paycheck to paycheck. Look, I promise you, you are not gonna get ahead financially if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Over 2/3 of Americans have less than $1,000 in their bank account. Can you believe that? I mean, it's no wonder that so many people are not able to get ahead in this world, and that is a huge part of it. So what you wanna do is you wanna set up a budget. You wanna have a destination for every dollar that you make. You wanna know what you're putting aside for housing, what you're putting aside for cars, what you're putting aside for date night, whatever it is, you want to know where every dollar is going in your budget. And if you do that, then you can also set aside money specifically so that you save some, so that you invest some, things of that nature, and that alone will already set you up for success. Now, as you're putting together your monthly budget, I want to highly recommend looking through your previous bank statements and credit card bills, because they can be a good way to gauge what you're spending on a monthly basis, whether you're talking about your food budget, maybe what you spend on gasoline, or maybe what you spend on entertainment, whatever it is, things of that nature. It's going to give you a good idea of what you're spending on a monthly basis. And in addition to that, it's also going to show you maybe if you have some subscriptions that you thought you already canceled. So this could be a great way to eliminate some expenses right off the bat that you don't even need. But one concept I'm a really big fan of is paying yourself first. So what that means is that before anything gets started, before your bills come through, before you send out your rent payment, the first thing you're doing is you're paying yourself, because you want to save that money, invest that money, whatever it is you want to do with that money. You're paying yourself first, and then you're going to live off the rest of your money for the rest of the month. And that forces you to stick to your budget, and then you're not tempted to spend that extra surplus of money. The next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is having bad debt. Now I say bad debt because not all debt is actually bad, believe it or not. You have good debt, which is the kind of debt when you're investing in real estate and maybe it pays you every single month, so that debt is helping you get paid money. Okay, then you have other kind of debt like car payments, student loans. It's not necessarily bad debt, it's not necessarily good debt, but it's low interest rate. You talk about 2, 3, 4% interest rates, okay? And then you have bad debt. Now, bad debt is something like credit cards, okay? You talk about 15%, 20%, 30% sometimes on the interest rate. But I want to give you an example. The average credit card has a 20% interest rate. So if you had a $10,000 limit, let's say you maxed it out, and now you're paying $2,000 a year in interest, just pure interest payments, okay? Complete waste of money. If you took that $2,000 and actually invested it at a 10% rate of return over 40 years, you'd have almost $1 million. In addition to that, credit card debt can also affect your credit score, and that can eventually affect your ability to buy a home or buy a car, things of that nature. So you really don't want to get into this high interest debt, because not only are you talking about paying extra money that is not worth it, but when you're talking about affecting your ability to buy a home down the road, buying investment properties down the road, that's when it's really not worth it, and that's when you're limiting your ability to build massive wealth in the future. The next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is not investing your money. Now, let me tell you firsthand that investing my money has been the biggest and fastest way for me to grow my net worth. And I promise you that if you don't invest your money, it's going to be very hard to get to that level of wealth. Now, with that said, compound interest is the most powerful tool at your disposal. And when you're in your 20s, you really have the opportunity to take full advantage of compound interest, because the interest just compounds year over year over year. And when you have a span of 40, 50 years to do it, man, you can can really grow massive wealth with that. For instance, if you took $100 a week and invested that into a Roth IRA over a period of 40 years, and let's assume you got an 8% return on investment, which is very common, you'd have over $1.5 million completely tax-free. A very easy way to become a millionaire. All you gotta do is $100 a week. It's so easy, and that is the power of compound interest. Now, as far as investing goes, you can invest in stocks, you can invest in bonds, even crypto for that matter, but my favorite, hands down, is investing in real estate. And the reason why I like real estate so much is because real estate, you can make money in 5 different ways, okay? You can make money with cash flow. You can make money with principal pay down, which is whenever you're paying down your mortgage. Your tenants are paying down your mortgage for you. You can make money with tax benefits. The IRS has created a tax code that completely benefits the real estate investor. And in addition to that, you can even make money with appreciation long term. And my favorite is value add, because you can buy properties below market value, fix them up, and get an instant equity gain because of that. In addition to that, you can also do what's called house hacking. Now, house hacking is when you live in one side of, let's say, like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. You live in one side and your tenants pay off your mortgage for you so that you can live rent free. Another way of doing that is also if you bought a single family house, you rent out all the rooms and all your tenants, again, pay your living expenses so that you can live for free. So anyways, I could go on and on about real estate, but this is why I say investing is something you don't want to miss out, especially in your 20s, because when you have that compound interest taking effect, that is what's going to build massive wealth for you long term. The next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is investing too much of your net worth into speculative investments. Now, by speculative investments, I'm talking about things that don't have a huge track record. Things like maybe like cryptocurrency, okay? That's a very hot button topic right now, talking about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And I myself, I've invested money into those things before. But let me tell you that you really don't want to invest too much of your net worth into that because it is a high risk investment. I think Graham Stephan has a great way to go about it. He invested recently 1% of his net worth into Bitcoin. And I think at 1%, it's such a small amount that you're really not going to sweat it or lose sleep at night over that kind of amount of money. So overall, I'm definitely not anti-cryptocurrency. I'm actually a big fan myself. I'm not currently invested in it, but with that said, I still think that it has a lot of potential for the long term. And if you want to invest in it, just invest enough to where it's not going to make you lose sleep at night, and it's a very small percentage of your net worth. Now, the next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is having a bad credit score. You see, if you have a bad credit score, you're not going to be able to buy a house, you're not going to be able to buy a car, you're not going to be able to invest in real estate, which is a great way to build wealth. So the way it works if you're getting a mortgage is the banks are going to lend to you and give you your interest rate and closing costs based on your credit score. So if you have a high credit score like a 740 or above, they'll give you the best interest rates and closing costs. But every 20 points down from there, so if you're at 720 to 739, you go down a tier and you're getting a little bit more expensive of a loan. If you go to 700 to 719, again, you're down one more tier. It's a higher interest rate, a little bit more in closing costs. And as you keep going down the tiers, it gets more and more and more expensive until the point where you don't even qualify for real estate anymore. So the point is, don't screw up your credit score, because if you're making late payments, you're getting collections on your record, and it's going to take forever to, first of all, to get that off your credit report. And then in addition to that, it's going to make it harder for you to invest in real estate, for you to buy a house, things that can help you build massive wealth for the long term. Now, the next major financial mistake to make is buying a luxury car. Now look, buying a luxury car is a big mistake because in year 1 of ownership, that car is going to depreciate 20 to 30% in its value. And then not only that, but over the next 5 years after that, it's going to go down another 15 to 18% per year. Yep, that's right, per year. So buying a luxury car is definitely a waste of money. And look, I get it. If you drive a luxury car, maybe you think that you look cool, maybe you think it's a status symbol that shows off your success, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Nobody cares, okay? Nobody cares that you're driving a luxury car. Trust me when I say that. Every suburban Joe out there has a BMW or Mercedes-Benz. Like that's what the average person does these days, okay? So don't be the average person, be the above average person, strive for greatness, and don't invest in a luxury vehicle. Now, one exception to this rule is if you're able to use your luxury car as an asset, okay? What I mean by that is if you can get your luxury car to actually pay you money. So depending on the line of work you're factor in, that may actually be a possibility. For instance, Graham Stephan made a couple of YouTube videos about how he bought a Tesla for $0, how he pays $78 a month for his Tesla. So those videos ended up drawing millions of views, which ended up paying him tons of YouTube revenue, and that in turn paid for his Tesla in whole. So when you can do something like that, that's not a bad investment anymore. So if you're like Graham Stephan and you can use that car to make you money, then absolutely go for it. But for everybody else who's just trying to keep up with the Joneses or trying to build up their status by buying this luxury car, do not make the mistake by investing in a depreciating asset like a luxury car. The next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is renting where you live. Now, you don't want to rent where you live because it's a waste of money. You're making the landlord rich, you're paying the landlord's bills, you're making the landlord get all the control to where he can raise your rent whenever he feels like it. He can non-renew you whenever you feel like it and make your family have to move. So you need to just save up a 3% down payment to get in the housing market and start building wealth for yourself. In addition to that, you can even house hack, which you're buying a duplex, triplex, fourplex. I just talked about this earlier. You know, they're paying your mortgage for you, and you can do this with just 3.5% down. The point is, you also have full control this way over your housing situation. You don't have to move out because somebody told you to. You don't have to worry about mortgage payments going up because you're on a fixed rate where it can't go higher or lower than what you set it at. Now, the one exception to this rule is if you're in a very expensive market like a Los Angeles, like a San Francisco, where maybe if you own the house, you're living paycheck to paycheck now, and that's even with a starter home. Whereas if you rented that same house, you're saving $1,000, $1,500 a month on that house, which you can use all that money towards investing in real estate. See, something like that might make sense in a market like San Francisco or Los Angeles, but for any other normal price market, it's definitely going to make more sense to own than to rent. The next major money mistake to avoid in your 20s is getting a useless degree. Do not waste your money on a useless degree. I can't tell you the people I know who have spent over 6 figures on a completely useless degree that they didn't need, okay? Do not be one of those people. Now, me personally, I ended up studying music in college. Fortunately, I ended up with no college debt, but it was not a great money-making degree to go for. At the time, I didn't really care though. I was all about my passion and what I love to do, and that was my main focus at the time. But you see, what I didn't realize at the time is I didn't need a degree to be successful in my field. You see, in certain fields in the arts, you don't need degrees to be successful. If I'm a musician, you know, if I'm a dancer, if I'm in the film industry, in many of these positions, it's not really the degree that's going to get you the job, it's your talent that's going to get you the job. There's countless people that have no talent that get the degrees and they can't find any work for themselves, other than being a teacher maybe. But when you really want to be in the actual industry yourself, you want to be a professional musician, a professional dancer, a professional, you know, let's say video editor or something like that, you don't need the degree to do that because they're going to look at what can you do, let me see your reel, let me see what you're capable of doing, and that's going to determine what you can do. So don't waste 6 figures of your income investing in something that's not going to pay you back. Now, of course, not all degrees are useless. I mean, if you're trying to be a doctor, trying to be a lawyer, or you're going into accounting or a business, something like that that can actually end up paying you a lot of money, you can get that return on investment on that degree. Those things, of course, make sense, and I'm definitely not shunning college by any means. What I'm trying to say is don't waste your money on a useless degree, a degree that's not going to give you a return on that investment. All right, the final major money mistake to avoid making in your 20s is not investing in yourself after college. You see, once people finish college, they get their degree in their hand, they think there's nothing else to learn. They think that they got it all figured out and there's nowhere to go from there. But they couldn't be more wrong. The only reason that I even invest in real estate today is because I invested in myself. You see, I wasn't born into a real estate family. I didn't know anything about fixing up a home or how to add value to it. I knew nothing about it. I spent thousands of hours reading books, taking online courses, I listened to podcasts, I attended investor meetups, I did whatever it took to learn how to do this thing. And that's the reason why I'm even where I'm at today. But what's crazy is that people will genuinely freak out over spending a few $100s on a course that will teach them how to make thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, whereas at the same time, they won't even think twice about spending over $1,000 on the latest iPhone. So at the end of the day, success leaves clues, and if people like Warren Buffett and the average CEO are spending hours upon hours educating themselves, well then that's a clue to us that we ought to be doing the same thing, because that's going to lead to our own success in our field. So with that said, these are the worst money mistakes to avoid in your 20s. If you enjoyed today's video and you gained some value from it, do me a favor and smash that like button. And if you want to watch more content like this, definitely subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Also, feel free to leave me a comment down below and I'll do my best to reply. And in addition to that, you can find me on Instagram at the Out of State Investor. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.